What's up, Leafs fans? Welcome back to Leafs Digest. We're breaking down Toronto Maple Leafs losing 5-3 to the Tampa Bay Lightning, falling to 18-8-2 on the season, game 28 of the year. Goody, I think for me there's really one moral of the story, or not even moral of the story, but there's one glaring reason for tonight's loss, the way that we lost tonight. I'm not sure if maybe you saw it the same way, but personally, the way I looked at it was, it's a reason that we did this at the beginning of the year. We did the belief or disbelief and you asked specifically that there will be a trade at the deadline, a big trade. And at the time, I was saying no. And watching that game tonight, watching the way it was played tonight, makes me think yes, and not just yes out of let's get better, but yes out of we need to get better, and that is in the defense. I personally think tonight the main reason that we lose this game is because of the poor play from the defense, and specifically from Justin Holl and Jake Muzzin. They were terrible tonight.
Yeah, they didn't have a great night. I saw Muzzin make a few offensive plays that were nice, but all in all, that pairing, I think, has constantly been dragged down a little bit by the presence of Justin Holl. And I don't want to build up Muzzin and say he's some star defenseman that can carry anyone. He's human too. But I just feel like you're not complementing his skill set properly. Justin Holl just hardly survives night in, night out. And we're not overly deep on the defense here. So to get a trade to get at least one more body in there, even if it's not in on a nightly basis, you need a reliable option. I mean, this is a time where you miss a guy like Bogosian who can kind of slot in anywhere, bring a physical edge, and be defense first. Starting to feel the absence of him a little bit more for sure. I wouldn't rule it out. I think I was in belief when we were talking about making an upgrade at the trade deadline. And that's not because I felt as though on paper the Leafs really needed anything. I just know that teams that want to contend will have natural ebbs and flows on their way to building towards a championship. And most contenders do look to upgrade at the trade deadline, and you can't get enough healthy defenders in there. So I think it could definitely be in the cards for the Leafs, and it's been sort of an ongoing issue, honestly.
Yeah, and I think for me, like, the saddest part about all of this when looking at the defensemen is that typically when we say, wow, we have weak defense, we're looking down and saying Riley's not playing that great and he's the guy who's expected to be number one. And that usually stems from him not producing offensively. Well, now he's producing offensively. And to me, I have no problem with him because if you're going to produce at that clip, like he grabs another assist tonight, then you do that. Brody holds his own on the defensive side of things. I think that pair's fine. Then you usually look at the second pair of Muzzin and Holl, and they've been good enough where Muzzin has been really, really good, and Holl is along for the ride, essentially. And then you're looking at that third pairing, and it was Marinson slotting in. It was Dermott slotting in. It was these different names, night in, night out, who were just terrible. And it was to the point of that third D pair could never be on the ice because every time you go on there, you kind of, I don't know, you tense up a little bit, you get a little bit nervous, like you get the shakes when they go out on the ice. And now Sandeen's out right now, but Sandeen Liljegren has been very, very reliable. And Riley Brody has been very, very reliable. And you're looking at that middle pairing going, what the hell is going on here? Because you've got Muzzin taking up a lot of money. And the one thing I got to really give you credit for here, because I disagreed at the time and I'm going to go back on it and
I think I know where you're going with this,
is during the expansion draft, you were a big proponent of exposing Justin Holl and protecting a guy like Jared McCann. And I wasn't really sure, and I was kind of thinking, where do we go from here? How do we replace a guy like Justin Holl? Well, let's be very honest with this. With the way he's playing right now, I don't give a crap who goes in there instead of him because it's going to be equal to, if not better, than what Justin Holl is doing because he's been so goddamn bad.
I was going to say there's so many Justin Halls that exist in the AHL. To me, I didn't understand why we protected him, especially with the rate that we gave him. It's not a crazy number, but like you said,
do you not think, and
I
think you're right, I do think you're right, but do you not think that he's taken a regression? Like, he was not this bad.
If anything, I'd say Muzzin's just shown that he's a little bit human, and then he's not pulling the weight fully, because we've had our issues with Muzzin this season.
That's fair.
I still think he's been a net positive, and at times tonight, I actually really like the way he was moving the puck. At one point, I think he sprung Willie with a great play shorthanded. I don't know if you remember what I'm talking about. He got us a
Yes,
really good
yes, I do.
chance when we
Where
were on the penalty
Willie
kill.
had the shot, and then Muzzin followed up on the rebound as well, trying to get a chance there too. Yeah.
Well, there was that play, but another one in the neutral zone. I liked them with the puck tonight, but with Muzzin and Holl, you don't have an overwhelming amount of speed. And I don't like the fact that we gave up Jarrett McCann essentially by protecting him. But
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, where I thought you were going with this, and this was a bit of a long shot, but I thought maybe this is what you were gonna say, is trying to get Sandeen to play out of his comfort zone in the second pairing. Because I said
Oh,
at some
okay,
point,
okay. So I just got to start before you even go on to the point of this. I
yeah,
was going to follow that up after we were talking about Hall and
there we
see
go.
if
We're on
you
the same
were if
page.
you were on the same page as me at this point that it's time when Sandine comes back to put him in that slot.
Give him a big assignment. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But I promise you, he will do no worse than Hall has done so
Yeah.
far.
That's
And
the
you're right.
key
There probably
point, right?
is. I think so. And there probably has been a bit of regression with Hall's game. I've never been a big fan of him. So I never really have great expectations. So maybe I don't notice him stepping off like he has. But collectively, that second pairing has been the issue, which is weird for us because it's been the bottom of the defensive lineup, which has always struggled, at least in recent past with this team. But now it's Muzzin and Holl. And it's just, I love our third pairing on defense. Those kids have done a great job, especially considering the previous struggles of that kind of core on our team, and them just coming together and getting the job done, answering a big assignment. And now I am in favor of going the next step and asking Sandeen to play in the second pairing, potentially on his offside. And he's young enough that I think maybe he could make the transition. I get it. There's some calculated risk, but you're already looking so bad on that line, as we've been
Yeah.
saying, that why not just roll the dice and try it? You're midway through the season, not even. You're very early in the season. You can afford to try things like this out because it's not working. I've been saying this as well, and I wasn't praying on the downfall of Justin Holl. I was hoping he'd figure it out, but it seems like everybody's in agreement now that we do need an upgrade, and maybe that'll come at the trade deadline too. There's a lot of things to consider.
Yeah, I at this point I think it is very much so time to begin to look as Leafs fans, even if we're just going to do our own personal scouting missions, who's the guy that slots in there. Realistically, I don't have a name in front of me right now, and I don't have anybody that I would sit here and say, like, right this second, we got to go get that guy, and we could realistically get them. I don't know who that would be. Over the next couple days, you and I can sit down and look, and we'll pop back on here with another video. But we got to look now, because let's be very honest, Justin Holl is not that guy. And the problem that coincides with it is you can't move on from Muzzin. He's too old, he's costing too much money, and he's got a couple years left on his deal. No one's going to be looking to eat that up. And the other part of it is he is the better player than Justin Holl right now. Despite how poorly they're both playing, he's better than Holl. And that doesn't mean that moving Holl is going to bring you the return of a better player or an upgrade in that spot. There's going to have to be other pieces that go along with it. And maybe Holl doesn't even get moved as part of that deal. But you got to look for some sort of replacement because he is not cutting it. But then my next question to you for this is going to be, it may be too early to start thinking about this, and we haven't seen this guy play enough, and maybe you know where I'm going with this here. Would you be comfortable when Sandeen came back, having Sandeen slot into the second line, which we both know now we are both comfortable with that, but having Christian Rubens be the guy on the third D pair with Liljegren over a guy like Justin Holl, and maybe you have a seventh man of Dermott in there, and those three rotate through that spot?
I think you give it a chance because when you've taken risks with young players on your blue line, surprisingly enough, it's paid off for the Maple Leafs. So it is in that the trial and error part of the season where winning teams will inevitably hit some roadblocks. Got to figure out some creative ways to get around it. And if it's not through a trade, I don't mind promoting within the organization to give another opportunity. If he's done well with the Marlies, I'd say go ahead and do it because there are certain places where you look in our defense where it's like, probably couldn't get much worse. And I'm talking about Dermott and Holl, but that's two spots that you could have another guy come into. And maybe we end up trading Dermott instead and Holl sticks around like you're saying. But either way, you need a defensive option here that's a little bit better than what you got at the moment. So with Rubens, I think you would consider it. Are you high on him right now? Do you think that's something that could happen in the near future?
Yeah, like I'm not jumping out of my shoes. When Sandeen came up, I was pretty excited about it because he looked really good right from the jump. He had those moments of whoops, mental lapses, just not adjusting to the pro level, and you could see it clearly. But when it was going well for him, it was going real well, and it was one of those things where you're like, okay, this guy is a player. When Liljegren came up, it was a slow build to that. But now I think night in, night out, he looks pretty promising. He has occasional bad games, but it's kind of funny how it works too, and I'm not going to go too deep into it, but I feel like as young guys coming into the league, the progression is like forwards can get there the quickest. Defense is like takes a little bit more time, and then the goaltender can just take forever. Like you see a guy like Jack Campbell finally 28, 29 years old getting his go as a starter, but it's interesting how you move back closer to the net, how much longer it can take each guy. But I just think about like each guy slotting into those positions. Sandeen, Liljegren. Rubens was a guy who was in the East Coast Hockey League. He didn't get drafted. He didn't get signed by anybody. He signed with the East Coast League and with the Newfoundland Growlers, and now he's made his way up to playing with the Leafs. And I'm not necessarily sitting here saying I'm overly excited about him, but he's a big guy. He plays physically, and he seems to play like at least simple hockey.
That's all you need. And when you're talking about the gradual development, you're referring to it from a net out perspective, which makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, the farthest from your net are the forwards. They can afford to make the most mistakes and have it not bite them. Although you got to be accountable, right? Like you can forgive a little bit more in a young player when they're that far from their own net the majority of the time. Then the defense, more accountability, and then your net minder. That is something, as you're saying, takes a long time to pan out. If we can have someone go in there and just not be a negative every night like Justin Holl has been, just survive. That's all we asked of Holl.
Yeah.
And right now it's been too much. So if you can find a guy who's hungrier than Holl and is looking more towards that opportunity, I'd say go ahead and do it because you don't have a lot to lose in this situation. You're still in a pretty good standing. I think you got to try this now. And maybe it does come through Rubens or someone else, but show your hand. Go out there and try a few different things because it's a low bar at the moment, and if something clicks, we'll ride that momentum and try to find a more permanent solution at the trade deadline. But I'm definitely not against it.
And you know what I think is also kind of an alarming factor here is that throughout this little span where the Leafs have given up a whole bunch of goals, I haven't seen anybody questioning or complaining about Campbell yet. And we've been missing forwards, notable forwards at that, Mitch Marner and Jason Spezza. And we haven't struggled in scoring goals or production that way. Like even you look at the Minnesota game, we lose 4-3 in overtime. We still shootout. Sorry, we still score 3 goals. The game against Winnipeg, we still managed to score 3 goals. Roll into the game against Columbus, and we put up 5. Like there is production. The biggest fault here has continued to come from defense not playing that well, and this is something that is going to be, hey, this needs to be fixed. This needs to be changed right now, which is a sad statement because this defense, especially as a team, as a unit, was playing very, very well before this short stretch of games where in the last 4, we've gotten 3 out of the 8 possible points.
Yeah, and I do need to say this as well. I mentioned it on our last pod, but this has been the first stretch of games where Jack Campbell's looked relatively human. And I'm not coming down on the guy. He's done fine. He will continue to be okay. But yeah, he won't bail you out every single night. He is still a Vezina candidate in my mind. You could turn things around quick. Such a long season, and he had a hot start. But yeah, this is the first period of time where, okay, Jack Campbell's getting scored on more than 4 times in regulation. And it's not the offense that's struggling to keep up. It's the defense. It's unfortunate too. And I love how Sheldon Keefe has actually gone to the blender. In hindsight, I like it because when guys go out like a Spezza and a Marner, they've still found ways to score goals. So check that off the versatility list.
We are seeing that pay dividends here.
Successful experiment for sure. But the back end, I mean, Leafs fans always come back to it. I mean, we're hockey maniacs, so it makes sense that we pick apart defensive mistakes, and we're not going to be happy with a guy like Justin Holl. So I agree with you. The defense needs to upgrade, and it's going to be curious. It's going to be interesting going forward, talking about different targets in the league, how it could work out contract-wise, because this team is cap pressed. We talked about in general how something is going to need to happen at the trade deadline regardless. But more and more so, it looks like we might be going after a big fish defensively.
Yeah. And like realistically, the biggest problem here that we're seeing is big glaring issues, right? Where it's not It's not small breakdown where it leads to something and a goal goes in the net. It's bad passes behind the net, bad breakout passes. You can't go tape to tape. You're doing turnovers in the neutral zone, losing guys in the defensive zone, and it's primarily coming from our defense here and primarily from Holl and Muzzin. I mean, you look at the goals scored tonight, they're on for three, let's say three of the four, because the fifth goal is an empty netter. I think there was only one defenseman on the ice at that point in time, but so you say three of the four goals against these guys are on for. I don't know. It's the turnovers, it's the bad passing, it's the hitting guys tape to tape in the neutral zone, and they just happen to be on the other team and they're going the other way on an odd man rush now. Like, this is what we're continuing to see from that 1D pairing specifically, so something needs to change. But as far as tonight's game goes, Goody, let's get to a little bit more of a positive note. This is one of the best things that happened today is I get a text from you probably around 2:00, and it says, I honestly just gonna pull it up word for word because it was one of the best things ever, and for it to pan out. Josh texts me, Kase a goal tonight, I can feel it. And I did it in the betting preview before the game, and I talked about how you said you could feel it. Of the 3 bets that I put out for tonight, we went a little risky with 3 anytime goal scorers. Of the 3 bets, it was the one that hit, and it paid out the biggest, plus 280. Just run me through your thought process here of A, what led to the feeling, and B, how was the feeling after the fact when he did score?
Oh, it was so nice. You could have bet it twice. Getting 2 goals. Kase, man, what's going on? I'm telling you, Phil, it was all gut feeling, and I knew with some forwards out of the lineup and Tampa Bay being a pretty deep team that Kase was going to get his reps and be playing a whole lot. Mm-hmm. And I honestly, I can't put any X's and O's reason toward it other than we had some good forwards out of our lineup, and Kase has been playing really great in his role all season. He's just continued to build momentum. He's gotten better and better, hasn't even stayed the same at a content level. He's just raised his game all season. I got to say, It was just me riding the momentum of this player and watching him build up to this moment a little bit. And I got a feeling that Kase was going to go out and do something good tonight. Gets 2 goals. I was losing my mind when he scored. That was awesome.
Yeah, that was sick when that first goal went in. He scores the first goal of the game too. And just to ride off,
and the last one for the Leafs.
Pardon?
I said, and the last one for the Leafs. He was a really important player tonight. It sucks to lose this one, but I will definitely take the moral victory on the bets.
Yeah, and to just ride off of your point about how he's been playing, he is a spark plug. And you see that tonight where he's battling in corners, winning battles. He hits guys. He forechecks hard. He is leading rushes. He's really good at zone entries, actually, which is something that I've kind of noticed and really stood out to me tonight is he's real good through the neutral zone, carrying the puck, protecting the puck, and then entering the zone. But I look at those 2 goals that he scored. They're almost the same. It's 2 different plays, and they happen 2 different ways, but it's almost the same in terms of he's going to the front of the net, he's in the right place, and he has the hockey IQ and the presence in mind to be able to find the puck and be in the right place. But then on top of that, this guy just displays incredible skill. The first one, he turns around after Tavares falls down when he tries to give him a one-time pass, which, I mean, hey, had that pass worked out and Tavares actually being able to get it off, regardless of if it went in or not, that would have been a brilliant, beautiful passing play by Kase to be able to deflect it to Tavares there. Tavares falls, he grabs the puck, turns around, and just roofs it over Vasilevsky's shoulder, which is a beautiful shot, a beautiful scoring play. And then the second one, he's crashing the front of the net. A shot comes in from the point. He has the presence of mind to beat the defenseman inside, kind of box him out, grab the rebound, and then tuck it into the empty net. And it's just, this guy is continuing to prove his worth. He's got 8 goals on the season, and he's going to be a guy who had a pretty cheap deal and who's an RFA, actually, at the end of this season. It's working out very well for the Leafs. This is a very, very good signing for them.
Super successful experiment. And I got to throw it back to a comment I saw on our channel a little while ago when we first signed Kase and Richie. Someone said, as much as I like Kase, he puts himself in really dumb, dangerous situations, and that's why he's got so many concussions. And as much as you could look at that as a weakness, now I do see what they meant by that. And not in a bad way where I'm like, okay, Kase needs to slow down. He's going to be a liability to himself and his health. Not at all. But he plays in a way where he is fearless. He plays hard within the fundamentals. Of course, going hard into corners, zone entries, going to the front of the net. you're going to get banged up. But I'd rather him live a fearless style of play on the ice than, be conscientious of his concussions. I know I mean, take care of your health, right? But he's not timid at all. That concussion history has not affected him. Every reason that we went out to go get him has worked out. I saw him as a guy who could potentially score 20. He did it on Getzlaf's line, which is where I kind of put his ceiling, of course. And that's really optimistic to think he'll get there. But he's surprised everyone with two-way play. And I like what you're talking about, his zone entries and carrying the puck through the neutral zone. Every kind of sub platoon in your team, whether it's a forward line or a defensive pairing, needs to have a puck carrier. And just to kind of retract what we were talking about earlier with Muzzin and Holl, neither of those guys are great holding onto the puck for an extended period of time. I do think Muzzin is a really, really good defenseman. I'm not trying to segue this back to the defense, but I had this thought as we were kind of exiting it and just speaking about Kasha's ability to possess the puck.
Yeah.
It is annoying how, I mean, you look at our third defensive pairing, two puck movers, Sandeen, obviously the better one, not in the lineup right now, but typically that's what you're looking at. And then on the first line, Morgan Riley will glide around with the puck basically to anywhere you need and like take the pressure off TJ Brody to do that. Let him do his defensive game. But Muzzin is just overcompensating to help out Holl. We'll deal with that in a moment. Come back to it later. But my whole point is here, Kase does a great job of addressing that need on the third line where you're traditionally not going to have as much skill. So he does that. So guys like Nick Ritchie and Kampf, who I mean, Ritchie's skilled, but Kampf is, he's there to play defense. Kase is the heartbeat offensively of that line, and he was determined tonight, man. I love that we went out and got this guy. A little bit of a gamble because of his health, but it's not phasing him, and it's only benefiting the Leafs.
Yeah, and just the last point I'm going to make about Kase here. I think at the beginning, I was in this boat, and I don't know if you were kind of in there with me, but I looked at Kase's play, and I kind of had the word reckless on the top of my brain. And the longer that I've watched him play, the less I feel it's reckless, and the more I feel it's fearless. And maybe everyone doesn't have the same definition, but to me, when you're watching like the hockey players or guys playing hockey doing this, to me, reckless is no goal in mind, just going 100 miles an hour with no map. Like you're just flying around there and nothing's happening, smashing into guys, hurting other people, hurting yourself. The fearless comes from it's pointed, it's directed at a goal. He's got an objective. He knows what he's doing, but he's not afraid to do it. And I think he leans more towards the fearless side than the reckless. The more I watch him, and especially I think where it leads to the fearless is that he does come across as a very smart hockey player. So I just think that it's just he knows what he's doing. It just comes across as a little bit of a frantic style.
It does. I mean, he's an energetic player. And it's an interesting approach that some people have to safety in sports. They say if you play scared, like you're going to get injured, you will get hurt.
Yeah.
Kase goes out there with no remorse. And in a certain way, that's kind of how you should play to protect yourself, right? Just stay within the fundamentals of the game and play hard. And so far, he's stayed healthy. I'll knock on wood for everybody right here. And we've been raving about him all night, but Kase was such a nice pickup. He's made that third line go. Without him, I think you could see like a day and night reaction on your third line. Sure, they'd still be good, but right now they're one of the greatest strengths of your team. And that's all coming from Ondrej Kase. As much as Kampf does a great job at his role, he needs a player like Kase to complement him. And the cherry on top is that they're best friends. So I just love the acquisition from all angles.
Yeah. All right. Well, before we wrap this one up, we got two segments to get to. So let's start it off with our awesome Matthews play of the day. I don't know if this one's going to play for us right now. Does not seem to be working goody, so apologies for that. We'll figure it out after. But the awesome Matthews play of the day, I'm going to start this one off with yet again another play from Austin Matthews where he actually wins the draw through the defenseman's legs just like you write it up in an NHL video game, and he wins clean, walks right around the guy, steps through, has the presence of mind to rip it across to just the general direction of the ice where William Nylander is skating to, and then Nylander steps into a one-time shot that he timed perfectly, essentially. He took a little glance back to see where the forward was pressuring him. Puck bounces off the boards right in front of him, and he times it right as the puck lands, rips a one-time shot on net. It probably deflects it off Sergachev in front on the way in, but that is my awesome Matthews play of the day.
Yeah, Austin Matthews going into the draw with the house league approach, just push it forward and outskate everyone, leading to a crazy goal. I got to give my Poppy power play of the day though to Ondrej Kase opening
Yo,
up the
time
scoring.
out, time out. I do gotta correct you. I don't know. This is probably my bad, but we
Yeah.
did switch the segment. It is now the awesome Matthews play of the day. We got rid of
Oh
the
my God.
Poppy power play.
I'm living in the past right now.
Hey, it's all good. It's all good. I just wanted to clarify.
Okay, well, my play of the game, it definitely needs to go to Kasha because I woke up with a feeling, Phil, and then like Christmas morning, within
Yes.
the first couple of the games, he was there, or first couple of minutes of the game, he was there to deliver. That was awesome. And the goal too. I always, whenever someone roofs it from that close in, I always think of JVR, who was one of my favorite players with the
Yeah.
Leafs growing up. But Kasha getting at the Leafs going with an early lead there didn't work out in the game, but that's just what got me the most jacked up. And I love his game, so I'm giving my play of the day to the Ondrej Kase opening up the scoring.
Unreal. All right. Well, let's see if this next segment works for us. We'll do this one to close it out. Is our grades of the game. There you go. It is working.
Boom.
All right, Goody. I'm going to let you start off the grades for this one. I started off last one, and it was the first time in the history of Leafs Digest that we have been, like, significantly far off on our grades. So I have mine written down. I'm going to let you start off. I'm curious to see where you go with this one.
I'm going to say B minus, and that might be a little bit generous. I don't know where you're sitting with it, but B minus is my mark because, as you said, the defense just gave up on tonight. But and even Jack, well, I say the defense, Muzzin and Holl were an issue. Collectively, you can look at the blue line a little bit, and then Jack Campbell looking human. I'm so reluctant to ever criticize Jack Campbell, but not the strongest night for him, just speaking objectively. And then the offense keeps you in it, though. It's a B minus game because essentially you lose by a 1-goal deficit. You fight back. There were a lot of positives here. You got guys out of the lineup. It's a close game against a top team. You would have liked to win. There was some issues, but I'm not irate about tonight. I feel pretty good about a B minus, Phil. Where are you sitting at?
Okay, so I wrote down B minus. I scratched out the minus, and then I had put the minus back, so I have B minus as my
Oh
mark.
my God, indecisive.
Yeah.
You knew that's what I was going with. So you're like, no, I got to change it. Ends up at the same mark. B minus,
Yeah.
everybody.
I honestly had wrote down B minus and was like, like maybe it's maybe a B, and then I'm like, no, it was a B minus. So yeah, I'm gonna roll with the B minus here again. Very similar reasons to you, but just additionally on top of that, like I think that where kind of this becomes a little bit lower of a grade is because we're looking at this defense once again going, oh no, we have some problems here, and that's a little bit concerning, especially when this team was rolling the way they were. But I'm glad that this is becoming a known issue early on rather than after Christmas, closer to trade deadline, where it's going to become more of a tighter panic of, okay, this needs to turn around right now. We need to figure this out. At least we can look and take some time to look around the league and start to figure out who do we need and what can we get and make some feeler calls, because something needs to happen here. I'm going to say that right now. We can't roll in there to the playoffs with this decor. So that's a glaring issue that kind of got identified tonight. Otherwise, I think you're on right. Like I'm on the same track as you here. It's a pretty good game. We score a bunch of goals. You kind of come within one. You end up losing by 2 because of the empty net goal at the end there. But I'm gonna go. It's a positive night for Kase. He gets 2 goals. He scores 8 on the season. Rubens looked pretty good. Liljegren looked good for the most part. Steves has looked fine. He's not getting much ice time, but he's still looking okay. And that's just a guy that shows you have some depth of guys who can hop in here and be cheap guys to fill that depth role. So that's kind of nice to see again. A little bit concerning with Campbell letting in as many goals as he has. I'm not ready to panic on him quite yet. But again, another game with 3+ goals scored against Jack Campbell. Hopefully it's just more of a defensive thing where he's just facing so many high danger shots. He can kind of start to figure it out once the defense picks it up again. And the final point going into my grade is that this is the second time this season that the Leafs have lost when scoring first. And I know I'm a little bit back and forth on this stuff where you're like, hey, you got to score first. And I continue to push on that point. You do. But when you score first against a really, really good team like Tampa, it's going to be very important to hold on to that lead, because with them, it's going to be hard to go back and forth in the scoring. You can't go up 1, down 1, up 1, down 1. Like, that's not how it's going to work with them. They're the type of team who, if they get a lead later in the game, they're likely going to hold on to it. It's kind of what we ended up seeing from them tonight. For a lesser team, you can probably score and let them tie it or let them take a lead and then you can come back. But you can't do that consistently. If you're playing a really good team, a team that's a contender, you got to hold on to those types of things.
Yeah, you don't want to get into a goal scoring race with Tampa Bay of all
No.
teams. You got to play stingy defense, and like we've both been saying, that's where the subpar minus, the B minus grades coming from tonight.
Yeah.
And also, one other thing I got to say, Phil, is Stamkos had a crazy game while Marner continues to be out. The chances of making Team Canada there on the flip, right? That's another thing that kind of upset me tonight. I was like, oh, Stamkos looks good right now.
Yeah.
You know, Marner's had a good season, but debatable in a lot of people's eyes. And then I think, wasn't it the GM Team Canada said something about kind of slandering Leafs players a bit?
Yes. 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 Let's not
Things
get
not
into
looking
that
too
too
bright
much
there.
because we'll
Yeah.
we'll do another video talking about that later on. So if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to this channel. We get a notification. But yes, Goody, I agree with you. It was a little bit like, oh, watching Stamkos have such a good night tonight. But hey, he's been having a great season all season long. The Tampa Bay Lightning are still a absolute force to be reckoned with. They have an incredible goaltender in Andrei Vasilevsky. They have an insane firing power, and they again were missing guys tonight as well. Anthony Cirelli, Braden Point out of the lineup for them. So you're looking at big pieces that they were missing as well. But the Leafs do fall 5-3 to the Tampa Bay Lightning. We move to 18-8-2 on the season. Jack Campbell lets in more than 3 goals. Again, the defense not looking too great, but the forwards continue to be able to score despite having key players out. So overall, a so-so night from the Leafs. Hopefully we can bounce back in the next game. We will see you guys after that game, Saturday, December 11th at 7 p.m. against the Chicago Blackhawks. Leafs fans, keep believing.
Signing off.